Chris Cuomo, man, some people just will not go away. And I don't know if you've seen him on his new channel, new show, new podcast. The guy's trying. He's not trying to be honest. He's not trying to be correct. I'm not entirely sure exactly what he's trying to do, but I think he's trying to reinvent himself. He's trying to rewrite all the crazy bad takes and propaganda that he worked so hard to spread for all those years. But I think he made a mistake, man. He went on the PBD podcast, and honestly, I do not know what he was thinking. I think he saw that, they have a platform, they have reach, but it was a mistake, man. I mean, these guys are too sharp and they're too good. And Chris Cuomo gets absolutely crushed, man. They cover a lot. I mean, the pandemic, of course, that's Chris's thing. That's got to be probably Cuomo's crowning achievement. But they tie it all in the end, man. And they explain how Chris Cuomo and others like him really will be the end of Western civilization. And they really do kind of set up how this is going to go for Chris. And they set it up pretty damn well.
Clip.
Are the unvaccinated. You are the problem. It is the unvaccinated who are the problem, period, end of story.
The only people that you can blame, this isn't shaming, this is the truth. Maybe they should be shamed, are the unvaccinated.
It's time to start blaming the unvaccinated folks, not the regular folks.
Anyone you came into contact with will blame you, as will the rest of us who have done the right thing by getting vaccinated.
Because frankly, we know that we can't trust the unvaccinated.
I think it's time to get our moral house in order, Anderson. It's the unvaccinated who are the threat.
All of us vaccinated folks are going to start wearing masks to protect the unvaccinated folks. It's called a Christian value.
You're basically punishing the vaccinated for the sins of the unvaccinated.
People are not behaving honorably. The unvaccinated are basically saying, well, it's open season for me. I can do whatever I want as well.
The unvaccinated are basically beating their breasts and running around the country saying, we don't care, we're living free and so forth.
We've been patient, but our patience is wearing thin.
Clearly, they don't actually want to have like a reckoning about any of this. And the thing that, for me, and I'm sure a lot of people in this room, it's like it makes your blood boil to watch this and kind of relive it and remember that, and just to think that, right, like you just mentioned the stock of big pharma companies and how much money they were making off of it. Look,
This is Pfizer, by the way. Yeah. Check this out.
It's going pretty good for them. Hey, by the way, did that ever come up on CNN? You think they ever had that graphic up there?
Yeah.
Did they?
Yeah, because the whole point
right.
was they were making money. They were also given absolute liability against any suits for the vaccine injuries.
Yeah.
And
pretty corrupt.
And it was a very weird combination of things we had never seen before. And the company said, we won't make it under Operation Warp Speed's guidelines unless you insulate us from litigation for this process. And the government said, okay, we need it.
And yet you guys spent every day, all day long, demonizing American people who were skeptical about this, demonizing the people rather than demonizing the powerful.
So
listen, listen, hold on, let me just say for a second.
Well, it's pretty early in this whole experiment, but you have to believe that Cuomo completely regrets this decision. I mean, just look at his face, man. He gets called out for spending his time, basically all of his efforts, on demonizing the people, instead of holding to account the actual powerful, the powerful. You know, Douglas Murray has a great quote. You know, the media's job is to hold the powerful to account on behalf of the powerless. That is its one and only job. But the media we have now in the West, you know, the media that Chris Cuomo has been a really huge part of, is a media that aligns with the powerful against the powerless. And there's no better way to put it. This next clip is a pretty great example of how we've shifted. You know, they're about to talk about wealth transfer, you know, from the working class to the richest of the rich. And 20 years ago, man, if you heard this conversation, you would imagine that it was some Bush Republican, that they would be on the defense, right? Now in the year 2024, it's the left and the corporate media that they've basically captured. You know, and it's amazing. It's a really good part.
Second, right, go ahead. 2020 was the largest transfer of wealth in human history. And it was from the working and middle class in America to the millionaires and billionaire class. That you can go look up the data on that. They got richer than ever before.
It's an absolute fact, man. And the people that say that you are an authoritarian bootlicking cult member or whatever garbage fantasy they have, they completely and totally support this in every single way. they support it, because it's never, ever, ever been about empowering the working class. It's never been about lifting people into or out of the middle class. It's about power. It is about power and control. I mean, that is it. And they're just getting started, man. So I'll keep going, guys. But if you're enjoying this content, please make sure to like, make sure to subscribe. It really, really does mean a lot. And it goes a long, long way to helping us reach more people.
Joe Rogan is bigger than every single show at CNN combined and gets paid more than every single person at CNN combined. And he was 100% right about this thing through the entire time.
No, he wasn't.
Yes, he wasn't. Hold on.
Okay.
Hold on. Let me get this point out here.
Tell me what he was right about.
Okay, how about, you know what you just revealed last month on Pat's show about ivermectin?
Yeah.
Joe Rogan was saying that, and you were smearing him for saying that.
Yeah.
You literally said he's taking horse dewormer.
Yes.
He should be ashamed of himself. You pleaded with your audience to not take it.
Yes.
Then you come back around and you go, hey, Pat, you know what I just found out? Turns out this thing isn't for animals. Turns out humans are. But Chris, that's a 5-minute Google search and you would have known that.
First of all,
how do you not apologize to Joe Rogan?
Listen, do you know who disagrees with you? Do you know who disagrees with you? The people who make ivermectin disagree with you.
Hold on. What do they disagree with me about?
That the drug should not be taken as a standalone for COVID-19.
I never said it should.
That's what Rogan was saying.
No. He did not. No, listen. See, this is the thing, Chris.
Yeah,
that is a lie. That is a blatant lie.
Joe
Rogan. So you just pretended that I said it's a standalone for COVID. No. Here's what it always was. Here's what Joe Rogan said. My doctor prescribed it to me, along with several other medications, just like your doctor prescribed it to you. That's what he said. What I'm saying is that it's not horse dewormer, as you and everybody else at CNN mindlessly repeated.
Now,
what he said, no, let me finish.
What
he said, and what I'm saying is that it is a medicine that's been prescribed to people millions and I think billions of times, and it was totally demonized. Why? You already said why. You said it 2 years too late, but you already said why.
Here's
because
why.
No one owned it. You told me I should apologize. So what do you think I should apologize for? And then I'll tell you what I think you should apologize for.
I know what you think I should apologize for. Obviously, there was so much talk that they don't want you to take ivermectin. Ivermectin is the way to go. Take it. Joe Rogan got better from ivermectin. And by the way, I don't like what people did to Joe Rogan about ivermectin. I don't like
You did it.
No. Okay,
yes, you did.
Find the clips.
Dude, find the clips. You shamed Joe Rogan.
Find the
clips. You said he's taking horse dewormer. You and Don Lemon were chuckling at each other about it. I'll go find the clip.
First of all, you just saw the clips.
I'm
not chuckling. I'm listening to Don. But
no. The clip I'm talking about wasn't on there, and it's absolutely there. Here, do we have it? Hold on. Let's play the clip.
Injecting drugs for animals and horse.
And people telling them to. Oh, my God. What person? You know, you talk about, cancel culture and who to shame. Ivermectin, a dewormer, really?
They are shaming themselves.
That's what it is.
To shame them. They're shaming themselves.
So you're taking a dewormer right now.
Chris,
you can't apologize for that. You weren't being clear that it was this, and you know that, dude. You're being so dishonest right now, man.
I'm not
You were talking about ivermectin, the drug. You were not talking about this version of ivermectin. Come on,
I
man.
was responding to a situation where we were told that this is what people were searching out to take, and nobody knew what it was going to do to them.
Dude, think about what he just said, man. They were responding to a situation where they were told that things people were searching for, that, no one knew what it was going to do to them, even though they've already established a couple of important facts here. They've established that Cuomo, that if he had just done a quick Google search, he would have realized that it wasn't just some horse medication or whatever, that it wasn't dangerous. But they've also established, I think, an even better one, that he didn't even have to do a Google search because he himself had actually been prescribed ivermectin himself. So the only thing that they stood to gain was the profit margins of the companies that basically invest in and advertise on mainstream media. And here's the thing, man, it doesn't even sound crazy anymore. It's not even hard to imagine that the real reason that anyone was out against any of the available therapeutics was because they were cheap, but anyway, none of that is important. Cuomo said that they were reacting to what people were searching for and taking. And that's just not the media's job, man. That is not what they're there for.
People like me, and I'm sure a lot of you, were basically turned into second-class citizens, weren't allowed to go into restaurants, weren't allowed to go to sporting events, weren't allowed to go into a lot of different office buildings, things like that. And you personally, along with everyone at CNN, cheered that on. You mused and joked around when you were interviewing Dr. Fauci about what rights the unvaccinated should have. So Dr. Gupta goes to Joe Rogan and says, it is in the middle of all this. He goes, so are you going to get the vaccine? And Joe goes, no, I just had COVID. Why would I get it? I got natural immunity. It's stronger than the vaccine. And Dr. Gupta went, yeah, that's a good point. He had nothing for him. He had no response. Like when you were, listen.
That's not even close to accurate. Okay?
Yeah, well, remember last time we played the clip and I was right? Remember last time?
You weren't right about that either. You weren't right about that
Chris,
either.
dude, you're in denial here, man. It's so clear that you said that. Just admit it, man, and we can move on.
Again, here's the main difference. You may not say it this way, but this is what I think you're suggesting. You believe that you were demonized for not taking the vaccine, and that was wrong because it was right to not take the vaccine.
Okay. No. First of all, I don't believe I was demonized for taking the vaccine. We just played video proof of it. Me, and it's not me, it's me and tens of millions of Americans were demonized to take the vaccine. Now, when you say it was wrong because you weren't supposed to take the vaccine, I think, and this is summing up a lot in a short period of time, I think there was a strong argument in the initial wave of COVID, if you were old and sick and had never had COVID, it might have been a good idea to
what
take
if you
the vaccine.
lived with someone who was old and sick?
That probably wouldn't have done anything. Literally, it's not going to stop.
You don't know what you're talking about.
No, I do know what I'm talking about.
The science is obvious on this. The first, look, again.
Chris, you got a lot of nerve not apologizing and then telling me I don't know what I'm talking about.
What do you want me to apologize for? For telling people to take the vaccine?
Okay, let's just stick with Joe Rogan. For mocking and smearing a person from the #1 show at CNN and then years later admitting he was completely right about what he said. How is that not attached to an apology? If I ever smeared someone aggressively and then 2 years later I had to admit that I come out and just say what you said to Pat on his podcast was exactly what Joe Rogan was saying this whole time. You go, first of all, it's not horse dewormer, it's used on people, it's very safe, and my doctor prescribed it to me. That's why I'm taking it. Yes, if I ever did that to someone, I would apologize for that.
But it's not the right context. And first of all, it's both, right? It's veterinary grade and human grade. I was not making a market.
Which one do you think Rogan was taking?
I hope he was taking the human grade if he was prescribed it.
Which one do you think Joe Rogan, who just signed his second $200 million deal, was taking? Do you think he was stealing it out of the cat bowl, or do you think he had a doctor
I'm sure they prescribed it.
So then you guys were all wrong for demonizing him.
I think that it was wrong. Look, you guys want simple answers. You guys want simple answers to this, and it's not simple.
No, this is simple. This one is simple.
It's not simple.
The vaccine question might be more difficult. This is real.
That one actually is, man, about as simple as it gets. But once a shill, always a shill. That and it's tough for a guy like Chris Cuomo to apologize. Especially for a smear. Let's be honest. If he started apologizing to everyone that he slandered or smeared, he couldn't possibly get to all those people. There's just no possible way. But this one is simple. And if I were Cuomo, I would not want to let these guys keep going back to the tape, like any tape, because this one, it really is simple. They got it wrong. And they basically got it all wrong on purpose. They never tried to get it right. I don't know if they got it on purpose, but they never ever made an effort to get it right. And they still can't admit it, man. They still cannot bring themselves to get it right. And that's amazing to me. They force themselves to continue to defend just undefendable positions and, mandates and lockdowns, all of it. They cannot admit that they were wrong.
Being a libertarian in our system. You don't really have a home, but it does kind of give you an out whenever you want because you don't have to be part of the other two. But, for me,
I get to just be right about everything.
Yeah, that's true. It's true. There's a convenience in never having to own any of the conversations. But what I'm saying is,
listen, Chris. I own my track record. I do a show 3 days a week. I've been doing it. I don't know how many of you guys listen to it, but I've been doing it through. I have a track record just alongside yours. I'll put my track record up there, and I'm very proud of it. So I do have to own something. I was out there in real time being against the lockdowns, being against the stupid mandates like outdoor mask mandate. It was so, listen, this stuff wasn't that, I don't mean to bring the conversation back to COVID.
Why do you think they did it?
But Well, listen, hold on, but listen, forget even why they did it, okay? Because I have my theories on that, but I don't know for sure. I don't know what's in people's hearts and minds. What I do know is that saying something like, I'm vaccinated and I need to force you to get vaccinated so that you protect me was so profoundly stupid that the second someone said that, I was like, now that doesn't make any sense.
And that's just the tip of the stupid, man. I mean, none of it made any sense, but no one was allowed to even question if anything did or didn't make sense, because if you did, you were a dangerous, misinformation spreading, disinformation loving, crazy right-wing MAGA cult member or whatever. And the media was the first step to bring you to heel, man. I mean, these guys talk about putting their records up against each other. It's probably smart to do a quick rehash of the history that Cuomo has here that he wants to put up against anything.
A lot of people in your profession who waxed poetically for weeks and weeks about how Florida was going to be just like New York. Wait 2 weeks, Florida's going to be next. Just like Italy, wait 2 weeks. Well, hell, we're 8 weeks away from that, and it hasn't happened.
What now? Shh. The really ugly reality is that Pence still sat there and enjoyed this maskless choir of more than 100 singing on Sunday. It doesn't matter if you're singing songs to the Lord. There is no commandment that thou shalt do stupid things in my name and get COVID. Quarantine may become the reality for more of us in this country. And for many of us, here's the scary part, a second time. It is possible you may see me in my basement once again. Why? Because this isn't about being scared. This is about scaring us straight with the facts. This isn't Fauci's fight. The science is obvious. This is about Trump and the Trumpers. He's going to have his main health guy stand up and say, fight back against the regulations to keep you safe. You want to hide on state news, you do it. But someday, you're going to have to deal with real questions. And either you're going to come on a show or you're going to do it, but you know what? We may go back to old school. And maybe the questions will come find you. Maybe when you're living your life nice and easy, because you don't have the concerns that these same people that you're telling to rise up, that they have. Maybe the questions will come and find you, because you have to answer.
It's no secret, man. This is who this guy really is. This is what he's trying to cover up. And here he is saying, it must be nice to be a libertarian. You don't have to own any of the conversation. What does that even mean? Chris Cuomo really believes that you have to believe and subscribe fully and completely to either right or left? And that just makes no sense. I mean, these people are completely ridiculous. I mean, you almost have to give the guy credit for showing up to basically try to recreate a reputation. Most other humans on the planet, I think they would just go disappear and just enjoy the rest of their life in obscurity. Just go away.
And I'll tell you what, you can look this up for yourselves. There have been multiple studies that show, first of all, just some basic things, right? Hospitalizations, 9 out of 10, once the vaccine came out, were unvaccinated people. That should matter, okay? Now, as you went through the iterations of the variants, should they have changed? Yes, 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 but it'll never happen. You'll never hear that where things stand today, because if there's no review, it'll never happen. But the idea of why you were supposed to take the vaccine was very basic. With the later variants, we really had mistakes made in this, in my opinion. Now, a lot of them will disagree with me and say that's not true, you don't know what you're talking about, you're not a scientist. It still did what it was supposed to do, and the boosters made up the lag. I don't know that that's true. And they are doing very little to find out what the vaccine is doing in people, and they're doing very little to find out what the virus is doing in people. And all the research that's coming out is saying those are our two biggest issues health-wise that we're dealing with.
Well, Chris, I really hope you read the book that I just gave you, man, because it destroys all of these arguments. Look, the truth is that, and the evidence is overwhelming at this point, okay? Like, you can go through this. It is just pure science, pure facts and charts. all of the lockdowns, you can't find any trend if you look at the lockdown states versus the not lockdown states, or the lockdown countries versus the not lockdown countries, the counties where there was mass compliance versus the counties where there wasn't mass compliance, the counties where there was more vaccine passports versus where you can't find any trend in any of it. The truth is that the virus did what the virus was going to do, and none of these government policies did a thing to slow it down. But
you don't think that hospitalizations went down because of the vaccine?
Listen, read the book, man. I'm telling you. No, it's not a conclusive point. But what these policies did do is they destroyed the lives of tens of millions of people. And by the way, Chris, this is why there's so much anger about this stuff, okay? This is why people are so furious and why people do kind of want to see somebody, because listen, I give you a lot of credit for doing this. Like, I really am grateful to you for being on this stage with me here. The thing about it is like, I think from my perspective, and I really do think I speak for millions of Americans when I say this is all we get. You. Like, there's no one else. Fauci's never going to do a debate like this. None of the other top establishment scientists will go. Well, hold on. Let me just finish my point. Yeah, because they're cowards and they're wrong. None of them will go on Joe Rogan's podcast, right? What did he end up? You remember the pot that was offered for that doctor who was like, everyone chipped in? I think you chipped in for it. Yeah, like everyone's. He would raise millions of dollars. They won't debate RFK. They won't do any of this, and so it's like, look. I think a lot of people are angry about this stuff. Now, back to the point you were making here, okay? When we're talking about specifically the vaccine passports, okay? This was during the Omicron wave.
Right.
We're talking late 2021.
Right.
There has been, at this point, you had almost 2 years of COVID hysteria, with the establishment being wrong about every single prescription along the way. And meanwhile, there's also mass censorship of any of the experts who come out against it. I mean, the Great Barrington Declaration, that happened in the fall of 2020. This is a full year later after that, after all these experts came out and said the government got this entire response wrong and ruined tens of millions of people's lives. But listen, if you look at, there's no question about.
They were seen as a minority group.
Yeah, but they were a group of experts. I mean, I don't know. Yeah, the ones who
I'm just
tell
saying,
the truth.
That was shot down.
If you look at what Omicron did, okay, this was after mass vaccination, okay? It tore through the unvaccinated areas and the vaccinated just alike. You cannot look at one chart and say, oh, look, this area had high vaccination rates, and therefore Omicron didn't really come in here and no, tore through it just the same as it did everybody else.
It tore through it in terms of cases, not severe cases.
It's not true.
Look, I agree.
It's not true.
I agree. Well, look, again, we can look at the data. You can put the data up. I mean, this is what I do. But what I'm saying is this. This
is what I do too, with a much better track record, Chris. I'm just being honest. This is the truth.
We can put up the data because this is what I do, says Chris Cuomo, as if Chris Cuomo is some sort of like intellectual medical research professional. Come on, man. The guy is a lying, grifting propagandist, like through and through. I mean, the guy is the real deal. He's in some kind of transition. He's just in the process of transitioning from pushing a state agenda to now pushing a Chris Cuomo first personal agenda. I mean, that is what he does. I mean, just look at the guy's body language. He doesn't know the data. He has absolutely no clue what they're even talking about. He recognizes that whatever the data says, it's probably not helpful to the whole new Cuomo first agenda. So he does what he actually does. He lies, he deflects, and he ignores, and he tries to move on. I mean, that's what he does. I'm actually surprised, honestly, that he's brave enough to do it with these guys.
I know that you have a better track record. I really don't know that you have a better track record.
Okay, so let me ask you this.
Right.
Do you think lockdowns worked? Did they cause more harm than good? By the way, there was no good that was caused, but do you think they caused more harm than good?
The correct answer is you can, look, again, I wish these things were that simple. Okay. I can argue yes, I can argue no. The government will say yes.
No, but I'm asking you.
The people who are in charge of Robert Redfield will say yes.
Do you think that lockdowns mitigated the virus and were not offset by the catastrophic harm that lockdowns caused?
That's a different question. And that's hard to know. It caused so much pain in this country that it's hard to say. How do you value what they believe was saved in terms of lives?
Go look at the Johns Hopkins study on lockdowns. They looked at all the lockdown areas versus the areas that didn't lock down. They found no difference in mitigating the virus. It was just the disaster. And I was against the lockdowns from the very beginning. I was against the ridiculous outdoor mask wearing. I was against all of the mandates, all of people being deemed non-essential, all of this stuff.
I get it. But it wasn't just America. You make it sound like, you know...
I'm against it everywhere.
But what I'm saying is, but it matters that it happened everywhere. It matters, and it happened in other places longer. And in Sweden. Yeah, look at Sweden. How'd it work out for them?
What? Wait, are you serious?
Yeah.
Sweden, by the way, here's how it worked out for Sweden. Lowest excess mortality rate in all of Europe. That's how it worked out for Sweden.
They had rates of illness in there.
Yes.
And then they didn't build up the herd immunity they thought they were going to by going that way.
Okay,
and the UK wound up watching them and reversing course.
And why is it that Sweden has the lowest excess mortality rate in all of Europe? Because of all of the deaths that were caused by the lockdowns. That's why. They were the ones who didn't do that to themselves. And man, I mean, you look at, Pat brought up the number of small businesses that were ruined during the lockdowns. That's the least of it. And that's huge. I'm not trying to downplay that at all. But you're talking about suicides, families breaking up, children falling behind, just things that people will never, and not just that, but also just, look, here's the thing, right? And this is what I think the media class never really grapples with. If I were to ask you, what was the cost of the war in Iraq, okay? What was the cost of it? Now, you might try to find what you go, okay, we spent $2 trillion on the war in Iraq. Okay, there were 1 million Iraqis died as a result of that war. Over 10 million were displaced. You could look at the thousands of America's bravest young boys who killed themselves, tens of thousands, if you want to count the ones who blew their brains out in the aftermath of it, okay? But then you know what the cost of it was? Everything that we're living through today in our country. Donald Trump being president, the lack of trust in the corporate media, the culture war, everyone being pitted. Like, these things have costs for your society down the road that are impossible to measure. And the costs of the lockdowns, it's going to be another 15, 20 years before we look back and really recognize it. By the way, one of the costs of the lockdowns was the Summer of Love. The riots that caused billions of dollars in property damage across you remember the fiery but peaceful riots of 2020?
Yeah, I was in them.
There was, they were, that was a cost of it. I mean, those riots didn't just come out of, it wasn't just a coincidence that they came on the heels of 3 months of lockdowns.
I don't need to have these conversations. They don't particularly rate well.
That's it right there, man. This is exactly who these people are. One side wants to talk about the real effects that are literally going to be felt for years and years and years and for generations after bad government policies are basically allowed to be. Government policies that are never pushed back on enough, never challenged enough by the actual people who can, the Chris Cuomos of the world, when they have the chance, but he doesn't want to talk about, those kind of things. He doesn't need to have these conversations, he says, because they don't rate well. And again, you got to give him credit. At least he's honest.
I get a lot of criticism from people in power. I get.
Good. That should be a badge of honor, man. You're a newsman, right?
It depends on look, you don't know me, okay? The idea that I am conflict averse is silly. The idea that I don't test power is silly. What I'm talking about here is you are pretending, because you can. You have the luxury of not worrying about what happens when you say what you say. I work for a place that will get a phone call from someone that they care about, okay? It will matter to them. And you can say, well, they work for this 3-letter agency that are all, bad
Chris,
people.
If I had, let me tell you something. This is what's really infuriating about you saying that, right? I understand the pressures at CNN where powerful people could make a phone call and then you could be in a lot of trouble.
No, it's just an accountability proposition.
Here, let's talk accountability. If I had your track record on COVID, I'd be out of business. period. No one would listen to me anymore. I would have no way of making money.
Argue the reverse.
I'd be ruined.
I would argue the reverse.
Absolutely ruined.
If you didn't tell people that there were easy ways to get past COVID and that the vaccine was a joke and everything that happened was a joke, I don't think you'd be in business. I think if you weren't doing these things, I don't think you'd have the same platform because it sells very well in digital media.
No, I mean, it's just, first off, I never said the things that you just said. The thing is that, yes, you're right. Me being against lockdowns, against mandates, against the corruption of big pharma, again, yes, that did help me.
No, and the
sure.
vaccine. You don't think people should have taken the vaccine.
I already said that I do think there was a group of people early on who should have taken the vaccine.
But what is that group?
I said already, I'll say it. I think old, sick people who had never had COVID.
And the people who were with them?
No, I don't agree with that.
Really?
But I think there was a strong argument for that demographic. By the way, old, sick people who had COVID, probably unnecessary to take the vaccine. Your likelihood of dying after you had already beat COVID once plummeted way, way down. Natural immunity is stronger than the vaccine, as it is with almost all
And by
vaccines.
the way, it's interesting you're
all
saying
of the studies show that hybrid immunity, which is having gotten it from the virus and also having the vaccine, is the best level of immunity. That's what the research says.
This is one of the most ringing endorsements for alternative media that you're ever going to hear from an actual member of the corporate media. I mean, I'm not sure that he did that on purpose, but essentially he's saying that he couldn't say what he wanted to say. Even if he thought it was the truth, he couldn't say what he wanted to say because he was afraid that if he told the truth, someone at CNN would get an angry phone call from some overbearing 3-letter government agency and they would all be in some kind of trouble. Can't tell the truth on corporate media because you just can't risk it. I mean, that's a pretty damn remarkable thing for him to say. That's remarkable stuff when you hear a guy like Chris Cuomo put it like that. But that's not even the best part. I saved the best part for last for sure, man, because Dave Smith, he truly is an intelligent guy. And he has a pretty interesting point that if we didn't have a media, that saw race and racism everywhere, that there really probably wouldn't be much of it left. And he also makes the point that the way we are right now, this is the way empires collapse.
Off cable news, turns out this country's actually pretty cool and we're not that racist of a place to be in. And if they would stop provoking these racial conflicts, there really wouldn't be much.
I think the media is an echo of what you have two teams that are about. The reason that we're in the situation that we're in is that division is the best currency in politics.
Yep.
It works the best, okay? Enragement works in media, digital, linear, cable, doesn't matter. People being angry, they'll watch. They'll come in. Everybody's got a reason to be angry about something. The only thing that can happen in a two-party system is exactly what we're living. Zero sum. I can only win if he loses. It is way easier for me to make him lose than it is for me to prove to you that I am better. It's way easier to find something with him that's wrong. That's what they're doing. And it's been, you used earlier that this has been accelerating or evolving, this dynamic. I agree with you, but in reverse. I think it's a devolving. I think that this is a breaking down of civility, of decency, of compromise, cooperation. You say, I want to get into Congress, I want to get things done, I'm going to work with the other side. You are a dead man in a primary, especially on the right. That's what this is. The only antidote is bottom up. It will never happen top down.
Well, the thing is that we're in a collapsing empire right now, and that's our job is to try to right this ship. But we're in a late stage empire, and that's what America is. And this rarely comes up in corporate media, but the USA is the most powerful empire in the history of the world, and we are the global empire right now. But we're in the very late stages of that with all of the characteristics of a late stage empire. And what are those characteristics? Being way too expanded militarily, being very, very far in debt, and then what ultimately happens after that? The culture devolves into decadence. And that's why things are dumber than they've ever been before. And that's why, you have people, whether it's like a gay pride parade where two guys are like slapping their butt cheeks together and then they're going, we're standing up for our rights. Like, no, you're not. You're not fighting for rights. This is decadence. When you see, if you look back at, say, like William F. Buckley's firing line, when it would be William F. Buckley going at it with Gore Vidal, Okay, well, just the level of intelligence there between that and like Sean Hannity going at it with Don Lemon, no offense. There's been a significant fall off. And I think that's what's going on all throughout the country. And what's happening is that the most powerful people are trying to pit us against each other so that we're constantly fighting in a culture war, so that we never all get together and realize that, you know what the left wing and the right wing of the culture war have in common? Both of their dollars been destroyed by the Federal Reserve. Okay? But that never gets covered on CNN. You know what I mean? Like that I never see like a big segment about that. Hey, how come all those years having the #1 CNN show, not one segment about the secrecy of the Federal Reserve, the secrecy of the CIA? Instead, all we get from the corporate media is, I don't know, the unvaccinated, the Trump supporter, the Biden supporter, pitting Americans against each other, and all the while blaming the American people for these problems. When that's just not true. Most of the American people are good people. They want to take care of their family, go to work, be a member of their community, try to give their kids a little bit more than they had. That's what, and if we had a better media in this country, they would be laser focused on the halls of power and how corrupt they are. Because man, is there a lot of corruption going on at the time.
I'm telling you, man, you could watch and rewatch this entire video and you're not going to find one objectionable thing that Dave Smith says. And that was probably the truest one yet. You know, if we had an honest media, they would be laser focused on the halls of power. They would be talking about, and they'd be exposing corruption after corruption after corruption, literally 24/7, because everything about the ruling class and their relationship with the media is corruption. And no matter what side you're on, man, no matter how bad you want to believe that your side is good or that government is good or honorable or whatever, you can't argue that we are corrupt. The United States is, without a doubt, just as corrupt as any dictatorship on the planet. We just do a really, really nice job of making it look and sound pretty. But I mean, that's the truth. And another thing he's right about, we are in decline. We're stretched thin militarily all over the world. We're so deep into debt that generations that don't even exist yet are already broke. And he's right. We have decadence everywhere. Decadence is everywhere. And again, no matter what side you're on, you can't argue that. I mean, the only thing we can argue about is basically how far gone we are and what we could possibly do about it. But that was a good debate, man. I'm not sure that helped Chris Cuomo rebuild any sort of respectable image, but it was fun to watch him try, man. But that's just my take, guys. Let me know your thoughts in the comments. If you haven't already, be a part of our growth. Make sure to like, comment, subscribe. Most importantly, share the channel. I'll see you in the next one.